You know where I wish I had been last night instead of watching the Sixers on my sofa? I wish I had been at Parks Casino. Parks Casino is the number one casino in all of Pennsylvania, which happens to be in my native Bucks County, where they've got it all. World-class headliners at the Excite Center, the open-air Liberty Bell Beer Garden, Parks Grill Steakhouse, TC's favorite, the Bamboo Noodle House. Am I right?
Yummy, so good.
Just a few of the outstanding restaurants. They've got action, excitement, live entertainment. It is a destination. It is Parks Casino. Time now for the headlines from Smerconish.com, the newsletter. Yesterday, I griped that we ended up with 9,998 votes. Yesterday, in the survey, we exceeded 10,000. In other words, 10,549 votes were cast on this. Does it benefit Senate Democrats to hold an abortion vote that does not pass? Today will be that vote. And 67%, pretty decisive, 67.19% of the more than 10,000 who voted said, yes, this is a worthwhile exercise. Why will the vote be taken? The vote will be taken because Chuck Schumer, as the majority leader, believes that holding this vote is important for messaging. The move is meant to lock in everybody, primarily Republicans, so that during the course of the midterm elections, Democrats can go out and can say, well, my opponent voted to maintain, didn't vote to maintain or codify Roe versus Wade. Democrats are hoping to anchor Republicans on this impending court decision, which we're probably about a month, maybe 5 or 6 weeks away from, end of June, if they stick with the standard schedule. So there will be a vote today. Now, I have to say something. Yesterday, I had a telephone caller who called and kind of caught me cold by saying this bill that the Democrats are going to vote for in the Senate is going to allow abortion on demand all the way through pregnancy, right up until the time of delivery. And I didn't say anything about it because I wasn't really sure on precisely what they were referring to. It sounded like a talking point. Okay, the Wall Street Journal goes there in an editorial today. The name of this legislation is the Women's Health Protection Act, the WHPA, which passed by House Democrats last year. This is the rub from the perspective of, well, not just conservatives. Listen to this. After fetal viability, the WHPA would assure a right to an abortion whenever the physician's good faith medical judgment is that the pregnancy would pose a risk to the pregnant patient's life or health. What counts as health? This is sometimes defined to include mental, emotional, or familial factors, a loophole that permits elective abortions more or less through all 9 months of pregnancy. So that's the talking point against it being put forth by Republicans today. They say all politics are local. I was very eager to see, well, what is Senator Bob Casey going to do? Because, of course, it was the 92 decision, the Casey case, which was the follow-up to Roe versus Wade, not for this Bob Casey, but for his father, the late governor of Pennsylvania, that Bob Casey, or as he was then known, the real Bob Casey. Did you know, TC, that there was a Bob Casey who ran for office who had nothing to do with Senator Casey's father, the governor?
Of course, I only know this because I've worked with you for so long.
Okay.
I would not have known it prior to that, but that is fairly incredible.
So the father of the senator who's gone now, who was the governor, became known as the real Bob Casey. So in Pennsylvania political circles, you would talk about the real Bob Casey as distinguished from any other Bob Casey.
It was like the precursor to everybody saying real on their Twitter handle, like real Donald Trump,
Yes,
et cetera,
it's
like
true.
that, right?
He
The
was
real
ahead of
Bob
his time.
Casey, exactly.
With regard to Senator Bob Casey, he will vote to support the bill to protect access to abortion nationwide. Why is this significant? Because he still describes himself as a pro-life Democrat. He issued a statement, and this is what he said. In the nearly 3 months since the Senate last voted on the Women's Health Protection Act, the circumstances around the entire debate on abortion have changed. The real question of the moment is, do you support a categorical ban on abortion? During my time in public office, I have never voted for, nor do I support such a ban. So Casey will vote with his party in today's Senate votes. Voting. Okay. We had Nebraska And we had West Virginia last night as primary season continues. Donald Trump batted 500. In Nebraska, Republicans nominated the establishment's Jim Pillen for governor over President Trump's candidate, Charles Herbster. Herbster's the guy who faced groping allegations late in the campaign. And in an early victory for a Trump-endorsed candidate at the start of the midterm season, Representative Alex Mooney beat fellow incumbent Representative Dave McKinley in West Virginia. So Trump losing in Nebraska, winning in West Virginia. Of course, all eyes shifting now to Pennsylvania, which is next Tuesday. And it is unbelievable what's going on in Pennsylvania, because not only do you now have the emergence of Kathy Barnett, an evangelical Christian who could be the nation's first African-American female Republican senator. It's Oz and it's McCormick, and now it's Barnett in the same breath. And in the Republican gubernatorial primary, you've got Republicans now trying to coalesce around anybody who could thwart Doug Mastriano. And of course, I spoke yesterday on the program about how Attorney General Josh Shapiro, who has no opposition, will be the Democratic nominee and is sitting on $14 million, has run a very clever television commercial where he's presenting Mastriano's credentials in a way that would cause a Trump supporter to want to vote for him in the primary, but also planting seeds among Democrats and independents. Hey, this guy is really a problem if he gets elected. In other words, Josh Shapiro is trying to pick his opponent. So a lot of good political fodder worthy of your time today. All the links are at Smerconish.com. On the subject of Donald Trump and today's survey question at Smerconish.com, should Elon Musk allow Trump back on Twitter, assuming Musk's deal concludes? Yesterday, Musk said that he would reverse the Twitter ban on Trump.
You know what's happening over here? I've got to mute you because I'm watching you, and now
I'm do what you need to do.
I'm going to play it right now. Here you go.
Okay. I guess the answer is that I would reverse the perma ban. Obviously, I don't own Twitter yet, so this is not like a thing that will definitely happen. Because what if I don't own Twitter? But my opinion, and Jack Dorsey, I want to be clear, shares this opinion, is that we should not have perma bans.
So you heard Musk saying, hey, I don't own it yet. If I do own it, I'd like to let him come back. And Dorsey, who of course is the founder of Twitter, is in agreement with that. Wall Street Journal has a very interesting editorial today on this subject saying, hey, Donald Trump, you're doing well. You're doing just fine off of Twitter. And if Trump is suddenly back on Twitter and his impulsivity takes control again, that's going to be bad for Donald Trump. So maybe if Musk lets you come back, you might want to think about whether you want to go back, at least going back now. I'll bet there are a number of Republican candidates up for election in the midterm election who hope that he doesn't come back until after the midterm election. The economy continues. Abortion's out there as an issue. I still think James Carville is right in saying it's the economy stupid. Of course, the new numbers came today. Consumer debt getting a lot of attention. I have a CNBC link at Smerconish.com, which is under the headline, Household Debt nears 16 trillion despite rising rates and inflation. So households in America taking on an increasing amount of consumer debt, which is worthy of your attention, pertaining to the president because inflation is dogging him. Mark Halpern in his newsletter today has that laundry list of problems that are being faced by the administration. There's the known list and the unknown list. And on the unknown list, meaning it's not yet clear how much of a problem this is going to be for the president. We know inflation's a problem. We know that Ukraine is a problem. We know that immigration is a problem. There are a lot of things we know are problematic for the president. There are also some things that we're not quite sure where they're going. And one of them is the investigation into Hunter Biden. Another that was on Mark's list were concerns about the president's cognitive abilities, which is kind of a difficult subject to discuss, with good taste. I bring this up, however, because Rick Scott, the Republican from Florida, as Chris Cillizza writes for CNN today, went there with a devastating quote. Scott says, let's be honest, Biden is unwell, he's unfit, he's incoherent, he's incapacitated, he's confused, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If it were just someone who is a talking head and is opposed to the president and his agenda and so forth, I don't think I'd stop to mention it. But because it comes from a Republican senator and someone who's in charge of the Senate reelection efforts, it becomes significant. So that too is out there on a different note pertaining to mental health, and about which I think there's no debate. We have a crisis in this country with regard to the mental health of young Americans. Matt Richtel has been a guest of mine on POTUS here and also on CNN. He's a Pulitzer Prize winner from the New York Times. And I think, TC, we're up to the third installment of a year-long look and investigation into teen mental health that the Times has given him the leeway to go and speak to everybody and come back with your findings. There was first the overview. There was second the story about how emergency rooms are being overrun. Beds are being taken up in emergency rooms across the country by young adults who are showing up with their parents in distress. And now here's installment number 3. It's the impact on pediatricians. The medical system has, I'm reading now from this third installment in the New York Times, which is posted at Smerconish.com. The medical system has failed to keep up, and the transformation has increasingly put emergency rooms and pediatricians at the forefront of mental health care. Community doctors now routinely deal with complex psychiatric issues, making tough diagnoses after brief visits and prescribing powerful psychiatric medications for lack of better alternatives. So pediatricians who are grounded and trained in a lot of different areas, but really not equipped to handle this, are now thrust into the front line of this sensitive subject.
I just am so glad that has
Me
such
too.
a spotlight and such a platform for this. It's, I think, the most important subject that we can talk about. Among
we
them.
do.
And I'm so grateful. that-
Every
I know-
opportunity I get,
know we do.
I talk about it.
I thank you.
Okay, you know I'm a cafeteria Catholic.
Yes.
I was contemplating becoming a cafeteria Orthodox Christian.
Oh, wow. Okay, this is news.
Feeling
and,
my roots.
And when you say contemplating,
Yeah, now I'm not so sure.
Are you done here?
Maybe. The NPR has a piece about Sarah Riccardi Swartz.
Okay.
Sarah Riccardi Swartz is the author of a brand new book and also a postdoctoral fellow at Arizona University. There is this remarkable piece at NPR talking about her work, and what it exposes is that Orthodox Christian churches in the United States are now drawing far-right American converts, some of them because they respect and admire Vladimir Putin.
Oh, no.
Want to be in his church.
No.
Yeah.
So it's the whole, you've discussed it here, the whole Kirill.
Kirill.
Okay,
Kirill, yes.
Thank you. I'll just let you say it.
So Kirill is the Moscow patriarch.
And that's the draw?
He's like the rabbi to Putin.
Wow.
Yeah. Now you've also got Bartholomew. He sits in Constantinople. He's the ecumenical patriarch. It's a very confusing church.
So which church were you going to join? Were you
not
gonna
Kirill's.
Not Kirill's.
No.
You're doing,
No.
okay. You can do your own thing.
Listen to just one detail,
Okay.
if I may. In West Virginia, there is now the largest English-speaking, in West Virginia, there is now the largest English-speaking Russian Orthodox monastery in the world.
Really?
Over a year of doing research, Riccardi Swartz learned that many of these converts had grown disillusioned with social and demographic change in the United States. In the Russian Orthodox Church outside of Russia, ROKOR is the acronym.
Of course it is.
They felt that they had found a church that remained the same regardless of place, time, and politics. Riccardi Swartz also found strong strains of nativism, white nationalism, and pro-authoritarianism evidenced by strong admiration for Vladimir Putin.
Wow. Wow. Let's talk about unintended consequences of this war. That is amazing.
She's written a book. It's called Between Heaven and Russia, Religious Conversion and Political Apostasy in Appalachia. Might have to get her on the program.
I was about to ask.
Do not miss at Smerconish.com today the story of the Canadian lawmaker who has now
Oh.
apologized
Oh,
for
no.
appearing remotely for a parliamentary session from a quote unquote toilet cubicle. Does that mean that he was on the can?
Okay. I don't think so. I mean, I know he wasn't, actually. Was he sitting on the toilet? It's not clear. I didn't think so, but now that you ask, it did say in the story that they could tell from the background that it was propped up. I thought it was that he was just in the men's room, not that he was actually using the facilities.
Participating in debate.
But can I just make a
Participating in
general
debate.
announcement?
Yeah.
We're too far into this now for people not to understand that their background matters.
Right.
It matters what is behind you. So if it's an unmade bed, God forbid, like blur it out.
No
Do
beds
some-
and no toilets.
No beds, no toilets,
Right.
no messy counters. Really just if
TC.
you can't this is not, I'm not being snobby because everybody has a blank space that they can just spin around. Do you know what I'm saying? So spin around. Like that's crazy.
I am constantly on Zoom calls with young hipsters, usually talking about, social media, my
and they
website.
know to blur the
newsletter.
background.
They touch a button.
Yes.
And they look very cool because everything's blurred behind them.
Exactly.
So the technology exists.
Right.
Use it.
Right. This is a general announcement. Good
Okay.
job.
Three quickies, if I may.
Okay.
Number one, the Johnny Depp Amber Heard case continues to be in recess. Remember, this whole week they've been off. They'll resume on Monday. We heard Amber Heard's direct testimony. We've not yet heard her cross-examined, but, very beneficial to Heard's side that they gave those jurors a whole week to think about the devastating testimony that she offered. The New York Post has a story today saying Johnny Depp's lawyers are thrilled that Amber Heard mentioned Kate Moss. Okay? It's a complicated story, but the gist of it is they'd like to get Kate Moss. Depp would like to get Kate Moss into the trial. You typically can't introduce somebody who's going to provide testimony that is deemed unrelated or irrelevant to the facts at issue. But in this case, where Amber Heard referenced Moss, the Depp lawyers are eager to bring in the supermodel because they think she will present Johnny Depp in a very favorable light. So they apparently were celebrating.
Oh, dear.
And it was a misstep by Amber Heard to ever utter her name.
Oh, boy.
That's number one. Number two.
Opening doors.
Yeah, exactly. They've opened the door. And that's what a lawyer would say. Your Honor, they've opened the door for us to now call Kate Moss. There's going to be a hearing next week in Congress. This is going to take place on Tuesday, primary day in Pennsylvania, about UFOs.
Oh.
And this is the
Yes,
first open hearing on UFOs in more than 50 years is going to take place. An open hearing next week. That's exciting. But the big flying story of the day is this guy with zero flying experience. Where were they coming from? The Bahamas?
I think they were coming from the Bahamas towards Florida. But go ahead. You want to set it up?
He calls in.
Okay. So the pilot passes out. It's just a pilot and a passenger.
Right.
The pilot passes out for whatever reason, incapacitated. So the passenger, by the way, first thing, knows how to radio in for help.
Right.
That's not a given on this plane necessarily. This is not like a stick and go plane. This is a major, this is a high wing turboprop 9 to 13 seater. Like this is a big plane. Cessna, what it was
208 Caravan.
Yeah. But it's not, when you think of a Cessna, you think of the little 4-seater. No, this is a big plane. And he radios in and says, I need help here. Actually, I have the very beginning.
Yeah, let's go.
I've got a serious situation here. My pilot has gone incoherent. I have no idea how to fly the airplane, but I'm in 9100.
Yeah, so I got a serious situation here. Yeah, he does. And then the air traffic controller, this is now the second unbelievable thing in this story. The air traffic controller is also a flight instructor. That is not a small thing because he knows how to talk this guy down. They both stay unbelievably calm. The passenger's like, I'm off the coast of Florida. He's like, hang on, we'll find you. Took them a while to find out where he was. And the guy, the air traffic controller
Wow.
printed from online the display so he could talk him through, like, no, to your right hand, to your left, 2 knobs over from the right.
Amazing.
Landed the plane, and greatest ending to this, went home to his pregnant wife.
Is that unbelievable? It reminds me of flying, in my case, flying a couple of times from Detroit to Mackinac Island to give speeches.
Was it just you and one pilot?
Yeah, me, and I'm in the back, and I'm wearing headphones, and it's noisy.
Okay, next time make sure you know how to radio in.
And I'm like this. I'm like, what could I do if I needed to?
Right.
Yeah, one pilot. I've done it 3 different times.
Well, and that's not unusual with a plane that size to just have one pilot, but it does make you wonder.
If the guy dropped, you're absolutely right. Like, how would I even know?
That's
first of all, how would I get him out of the seat?
No, you don't have to be out of the seat. You can fly from the second seat. You can fly.
So tell me what I would do. I would get in the co-pilot seat.
Correct. That's what you would do.
By the way, I ask this of TC because TC has soloed.
That's right.
TC has soloed.
My father's a lifelong pilot and grew up flying from age 14, gliding, and then his fixed license, and then helicopter. So he's flown his entire life. Certified flight instructor. He's incredible. And I soloed right after I graduated from high school, never pursued it, did not get my private pilot's license, which I regret. But I am familiar just a little bit with planes.
But you went out and you took off and you flew around and you landed.
Several times. Oh yeah. Several times.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
That is very cool.
But I didn't fly overseas, from over the ocean to Florida and land that size.
It's amazing.
Plane. It's incredible.
It is amazing.
It's a miracle.
What a great story. All right, go vote at Smerconish.com on the survey question of the day today, which asks whether Elon Musk should let Donald Trump back on Twitter. Subscribe to the newsletter, and thanks for paying attention.